So welcome everybody to this month's monthly roundup. This month we're talking on one of the pitfalls of leadership in our series on money, power, and sex. So this month we're just focusing on the pitfall of power. We've got a great lineup. We've got Benny, who's from Romania, working in Romania. We've got Elise, who's from Norway, working in Greece, and Francis, who's from Nigeria, working in Germany. It's great to have you guys, and I'm going to kick off with you, Benny, to share some of your insights for this month.
hmm Yeah, it's very interesting. I really love to read the articles and to study a little bit about power. And I'm coming from an ex-communist country where we had power was used in a negative way, and we have a problem in our culture to relate to power. We don't do very well with power, and we don't like so much power. But looking at Jesus' leadership style, he had power. He was the Son of God, but still he was serving the people. And this is what I really loved, looking at the way of Jesus leading the people, and this was shepherd leadership. And I think shepherd leadership is so important. It's so different than using power, controlling people. In a shepherd leadership style, you give people place where they can grow, where they can develop, and this is amazing when you have people around, and also us in YWAM, when we have people that we are leading them, just to make sure and to offer them the space where to grow. And even if they become bigger than us, that's fine. That's where God wants them to be. And this is very important. We don't have to be afraid that we will lose our leadership or our influence. God is helping us, and it's putting us, and He entrusted us with those people to invest in them. And as a leader, this is very important. And one thing that I read from Steve Mayers on his article was, if you are not spending time developing others, you are missing part of your calling. We are called as leaders to spend time, um, to have time. You cannot invest in somebody if you don't spend time. So fellowship and building trust and relationship with the people that we are leading, it's a very key point in this servant leadership, in the 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 shepherd leadership. So I think it's really important, and I really enjoyed looking more on this type of leadership, because we need leadership. Leaders are very important. They are put there by God, and they are to lead people, and they are to guide people, and to protect their people. So this was something that I looked on. How can we offer? How can we make a space for them to grow? And even if they want to ask, to offer them a place where they can ask ourselves, where they can question, and not to be afraid of that. We don't have to be afraid of receiving questions or remarks or anything, because in that place you offer vulnerability, where they can grow, where they can learn from you, and people, they want to learn from their leaders. They want to be close to their leaders. But if they receive space, if they receive an environment where they can grow, they will continue to stay there. They will feel they are welcome. They feel they are honored. And I think this is very important for us to give that space, to offer that environment for them, to that they can feel, yes, I'm welcome in this group. I'm welcome in this on this platform, and I see a place where I can grow. Many people are running from leaderships where they cannot grow. We see, and we have maybe a lot of experiences in or own or heard about experience where people, when they are not served, they leave so tired from there, and they don't live motivated. They don't see that they have done something. But the opposite is when they can grow, and if they have place to grow. They will grow and flourish, and we will see many things happening in this type of leadership. So I was really encouraged by leadership, but in a servant leadership style.
Mm. Oh, that's great, Benny. That's some really good insight from this month's resources. Elise, you had some really good things that you found as well.
Yes, I really enjoyed all of the reading and listening to all of these several people. And I think Edwin Phyllis, he started also off with saying that identity is very much connected with your leadership, and having the identity of knowing that God have chosen me, chosen you, and having that spirit of adoption, and that God have adopted us. And Jesus, as our ultimate example, he understood the father heart of God. And Gary McKinley, he mentioned that when it comes to leadership, Jesus made it clear that Christian leaders are not meant to lord over the people they lead, but rather to be servant leaders. And Elise Byberg, she also said that being a servant that has created trust, where questions are being welcomed and where there's no hidden agenda, and to be open and listen for feedback for the people. And having that servant leadership, and not to be concerned about our positions or prestige, but to see the growth and development of the others, and that other people will go first, and to listen and serve, and that creates trust. And that, yes, leaders need to be foresighted, but decisions to be made together with others. And Elaine Leakey, she was into some of that same topic there, and that if we're willing to work in teams, we realize that we don't have the whole picture ever, she said, but together and in God, we have the fuller understanding of the picture. And so when you have that trust with the people that you lead, people will believe that you act out of goodness, honesty, and excellence. And I actually really like that question that Alice or Lisa was mentioning, that is the person you're leading and serving become more healthier, wiser, more free, more autonomous, and more likely for themselves to be serving. And as Steve Myers, he also said that servant leaders need to be delegating and trusting and empowering people, and give them the opportunity to grow. And the win is not just accomplishment, but having the person to be developed. And the best leaders, they don't only delegate tasks, but they give authority. When you delegate the task, you create followers. And when you delegate authority, you create leaders. I've seen a little bit my own leadership position, and maybe my struggle or my problem maybe have been that I love hospitality, I love to serve others, but that can also be quite easily misunderstood, that I am trying to control, or when I'm just wanting to serve everyone else, that can easily be misunderstood, that I want to be in charge, or I want to take over, where my intention have only been to serve. So that can be a little bit misunderstood.
Yeah, and I hear you with that. When you're trying to serve someone else, and they perceive that serving as some way like putting your power that you have on them, it can be really hard. And I think one of the things that I learned, Alice Byberg actually did say something about the power imbalance in her talk. Just when you are a leader, as we've mentioned before, you have power. And I think it was also said on the drop discussion by Rob, like you have the power, you have power over people. And even if you don't necessarily see yourself as having power, other people will perceive you, if you are in leadership over them, as having that power. And we need to be careful, or we need to be aware, I think, more than careful, just aware of that power imbalance that does happen, where people kind of you come in kind of saying, okay, I want to serve, or I'm like, I've had instances where I'm thinking I'm just giving them some sort of coming alongside and giving them advice. And they've taken it as this is what you need to do because I'm the leader and you're not. And so that sort of misperception is, we need to be aware of that, and that power imbalance that happens in a leadership and someone that's under you sort of situation. And not to be afraid of it, but just to be, I kind of guess aware of it. I think it was said power is neutral. That I think Alice Bybeck said it's neutral, but we need to be aware of how we use it. Mm-hmm. And if we're not aware of how we're using it, then that can be a problem. And so I know that sometimes when you're just giving hospitality or you're trying to serve, it can come across to someone else who maybe has problems in the past with leadership as controlling. And you just need to be aware of it, I think. And I think that's it's the same in every situation as leaders. We need to be aware of what that power balance is in a relationship. So I hope that's a little bit helpful for you, Elise. That was really helpful for me when I realized as a leader, I need to just be aware of that power imbalance, and not kind of be pally with everybody, and give, sort of say things to people and do things for people, because it could come across as very controlling, unfortunately. So, yeah. I think one of the things that I really liked that Elaine was talking about is when she was kind of talking about the ducks that had hatched, and how people, people need to grow. So we need to be careful of not being helicopter parents, or as they call it, snowplow parents, where they just clear the path for their children. She said, like, we could have just opened the eggs for the ducklings, and the ducklings would have then been very weak. But because they had to kind of get through the eggs, they actually grew, and their wings got stronger, and they became stronger. And I think as leaders, we also need to be careful of clearing the path for everyone and serving them too much in a way. We need to make sure that they are also learning through doing and going through hard times. Sometimes, unfortunately, is the best way to learn. And that analogy for me was something that really spoke to me this month, just about, like, as a leader, we need to sometimes let people go through the hard times, be alongside them, be with them, but, not be servant leaders, but not clearing the path too much for them. So I think that there's that balance in our leadership, like to be serving, but also not to serve too much. Francis, you have some really good things as well to share with us this morning.
Yeah, I think one of the things I just want to encourage is the aspect. I remember what Rob was talking about. He talked about mistakes. As leaders, sometimes it's just like what you just said, not being helicopter parents or plowing the place, but also being open that the people we're leading, that as leaders, we're open for them to make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, we don't cover the mistakes. We allow them to take responsibility of those mistakes and be alongside with them as they take those responsibilities. But at the same time, I think it's the whole aspect of growth also. As a leader, it's not being afraid. A leader has power, whether you like it or not. I remember Rob said the whole aspect, as a leader, you have to recognize you have power. For example, visas in YWAM. You decide who gets it and who doesn't get it. Accommodation. You decide who stays in this accommodation and who doesn't. That is power in itself. But the thing is that power is so powerful that you can become very controlling with it, or be servanthood with it. Working in a very serving people instead of controlling people. And I think the challenging part with visa is very challenging, because your signature decide who comes to the base and who leaves the base. Now that is a big responsibility that a leader carries. But being afraid of power allows control to take place. Jesus had power. A king has power. A prophet has power. And in the apostolic, YWAM is a mission, discipleship, and apostolic ministry. If we negate the place of power, we will always be working in the place of being wimpy leaders. Rather, is embracing the place of power and saying, how can I use this power to serve, to empower, to encourage, to open, and allow what Ben said, and allow people to be greater than us. And allow young people not just to follow, but to be empowered. Not just to be empowered, but to be encouraged to take responsibility. And then that's where the follow through comes in. And I love what Edwin said. He said, when there is no logo, then there'll be no ego. It's not building towers, but building altars. And I think that's what leadership is all about. And for example, in YWAM, people are not paid a salary. So that means as a leader, our responsibility actually is to respect the people. Our responsibility actually is to honor the people. And sometimes while leaders are very busy, I wonder, Jesus wasn't really busy. He had time. As a leader, you need to create time for the people we lead. We need to listen to. And sometimes Ephesians says we should be quick to hear, slow to speak. And sometimes we should be very quick to hear, very slow to speak. Because we're so busy, we don't really have time. And when we don't have time for people, people will leave. The reason is because they're not empowered. They don't see, you don't take them serious. They don't see you be there for their own personal interest. So, but you want them to work for the base. I would say that the aspect of power is a leader is concerned. It's not about the development of the base is leading, but about the development of the people is leading. Because a leader without a people is no leader. A leader with a people is a leader. So the concern is not the building. The building is important, but the people are more important than the ministry itself. Because the ministry to be successful needs the people. The people to develop needs a leader who understands his identity and that identity and embraces that power, not for his personal interest, not for control, but for service. And of course, a leader who leads serving the people, in return, the people will serve. Not just him, but they will achieve their purpose. They will fulfill the ministry of the base and also be fulfilled. And there is no joy with someone being in a place. So I think power in itself is not bad. But how you use the power is what we do.
Amen. Oh, that's great. You could preach it all day, brother. That's really great. I think one of the things that stood out to me from Elaine's talk was when we work together. I think you mentioned as well, Elise, like as a team coming together, and it's not just the leader that has the vision and then we go forward, but the leader, the vision is something that's birthed out together. And she actually used the analogy of like a birth that's like a long-awaited baby coming together, and then a vision that's birthed out of wedlock, really illegitimate. And I just love that analogy. I don't know if it goes all the way, but just the idea of the vision being something that comes from the whole team to working together. The leader might have it the first time, but then brings the people alongside them, and they pray and they bring it all together. And I think that was something that really stood out for me as well, just that having that vision together as a team. Because if a leader just goes visionary and goes forward and goes without the team, then that vision's never going to be a legitimate, longed after baby. We've got a couple of minutes left on this. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to share more?
I just want to say, I think one of the things about power is that power is only safe in the hands of those that are willing to serve. The safety of power is safe in the hands of those that are willing to serve. And one of the things is when you have an individual that is hungry for power, that's very dangerous. But when you have someone who's been given power and is willing to serve with that power, there will definitely be growth. And of course, he doesn't do it alone. As a leader, you can't work alone. Because if you work alone, the weight is too much. That's why Jesus needed 12. I mean, we should learn from Jesus. He needed 12 to carry the responsibility. And as a leader, we just don't want to do everything alone. We want to share the burden. We want to empower people, because I think that the secret of leadership is recognizing you will not be there forever. So it's important to think future, not now. That you are thinking, when I move on, stepping down from that responsibility or moving on from where you are, who have you empowered, or which peoples have you empowered to take that responsibility, or what legacy have you left behind? Is there a legacy of service or a legacy of control? My hope is, as a leader, is a legacy of service, because it transcends. It doesn't just transcend on that position. Even when every single staff moves out of YWAM, that grace follows them wherever they go to. In business, in work environment, that grace, servant leadership, diversity, and is what is really working in the business world today. People don't want people to control them in the offices. And if we don't want that, and they're collecting salary, but they don't like a leader who's controlling. But if they are being paid for their service, how much more do we within the ecclesiastic domain really need to pay attention? That people who are not paid for their service, but voluntarily being called into service, need to be honored in the process as a leader.
That's great. I love that. A legacy of service. Let's all hope that we can have that. I think that's all we have time for this time. Thank you guys. This has been great. And yeah, see you everyone on the other side. Bye-bye.